are published, not all of them. We're working on publishing the others.
Impressive. How are you integrating visualization of the data and possibly teaching interpretation of graphs and so forth for publication quality, end result representation of the data?
So we haven't focused on publication quality teaching. We were focused on teaching, interpretation in terms of checking whether what you see on a graph has any biological meaning. For example, we have a project. The transcriptomics course is really all around a PDX project, where you have, the goal is to take it from, gene expression between tumor and stroma, and then look at the integration. How do they actually work together? There, one of the, a few things come up, and, some of them is that there are different mouse models, and there are, pretty big differences between mouse models, and then you can detect specific viruses, the Epstein-Barr virus, and some of the mouse models. And so, some of the graphs actually show that, right? So we don't focus necessarily on how to represent that. We focus on how to interpret that, right? And so I think there's a couple of lectures here that are focused on batch effect detection, correction of batch effects, and then normalization techniques.
Maybe I'm confused. Is transcriptomics 1, 2, 3, are those updated, or are they different things?
They are more complex. So the one is the basic
okay.
one.
So they are different.
Yeah, they are different.
It's not a new version of them.
Question. So when the students are learning all these concepts, they learn based on your pipeline, right? And so when the students graduate and want to apply this, what they learn, would they need to use your pipeline, or they can use something else?
So the pipeline contains open source algorithms like Top Hat and Bowtie and things like that. I showed you in the back end, it's just the executable, and all the interface does is it links the previous and the next thing together in a more intuitive way. We plan to have an advanced course that also teaches them how to now take all the same elements that they know how to put together, but without the interface. What we've heard so far is that there's probably about 10% students that are interested in that, and 90% are intimidated by it. So our first goal was to get people over that fear and into practical projects so that they get the experience and they feel like they can do it themselves. And after they feel like they can do it themselves, the technical part, there's actually many other courses online where you can easily learn how to do that. We're happy to add that into what we're doing. We just didn't see that as the first priority. And again, we haven't really launched this either. This is just in beta testing right now.
And I think that what the company is looking is for strategic partnership to be able to continuously renew the content. So the possibilities that faculty from LSU or elsewhere could actually help in creating some of this coursework. And ultimately, in terms of financing, this company gets finance for individual students or per student fee. That's in the order of $5, what it was you were telling me the other night.
$75 per student per month.
Per month, or if they have full access to everything.
Yes, access to everything.
Yeah.
And so what we're thinking is actually that a specialization will take about 3 months. Right now we see that one course is about a month long for students that spend between 2 and 4 hours a week doing this. So really the goal is not to overwhelm students and not to give this is not for bioinformatics students, right? This is for students that are non-bioinformatics students, but they need some biomedical data analysis skills and to get them there quickly. And yes, I think that the main objective here is, how do we take this and customize it to different environments, and how do we make it really accessible to the most students?
And yeah, I mean, we talked about, obviously, within our core, we have developed something similar, but more embryonic, right? Because we have the IBM Delta computer, which has now also a web interface, right, Nayo? And similar things, and it has an RNA-seq pipeline. I think a microbiome pipeline will be going up there. Part of the idea is to hook up through a PC and be able to also do a BAMQ, FASTQ file and take it through the same thing and put it out. And the idea was to populate those with our own pipelines. The problem we have, because it's a Power 8-based system, everything that is out there has to be compiled and refixed for the IBM Power 8 system. So if Berlinski wants to put one of his stuff in there, he has to recode stuff. So that's where it's the problem there. This one here provides things. Of course, there's an associated expense with this, but I suspect that if we were to co-develop it, and launch it to a limited extent within LBRN, we could argue that we could lower the price or do something else as a co-developmental thing, and then or get some kind of a agreement with the company that we share or something on what is happening, because it's a startup, it's based in New Orleans, and we could support it. The bigger issue is, how do you guys see this and how it could play? Because I think for LBRN, it would be easy for us to provide some funding and have our own people develop certain things and move away from the Delta computer that we have internally, allow the Delta only to do high-end stuff, and move into a course load like this, uniform across the board, but then have it LSU faculty help enrich it with certain other courses, and maybe even provide it to LSU students at some point, somehow, at the undergraduate level. And part of the idea is, obviously you have certain courses you guys do. I don't know, Cameron, what level is your course? Is it 3,000 or is it 2,000? 4,000. So the question is, how do you get to 1,000 or 2,000 or introductory courses? How do you get people to sort of, in a massive way, start doing stuff, right? And elevate, a lot of people that normally wouldn't really get to it, but they may be able to do it. So what I'm looking is for a, if I go to the commissioner, Giorallo, and tell him something, that I want to elevate the entire state in terms of, bioinformatics, because that's the future. And we need funding for certain projects or certain things. I wouldn't say we need it for 30 or 40 students. I would say I need it for 5,000 students statewide. And I think only a net-based approach, a web-based approach, will probably deliver that, unless we would do it internally. We're trying to do it for everybody. So I'm not, that's where we are at right now. So, and both Cameron and Jeremy are, these guys are qualified computational guys. So, and of course, Mike Benke here. So these are faculty that are doing it on a daily basis. So they could chime in what they think.
I mean, the reason why it's a 4,000 level course isn't because it's hard. It's because we wanted to be able to co-enroll graduate students in it. So it could easily be taught as a 1,000 level course. I have no doubt that for sure undergraduates could go through the stuff that I teach. It's very simple. It's meant to be introductory. But in terms of ramping up to thousands of students, I mean, that all comes down to how many instructors do you have, how much time do you have, how many classrooms you have, etc. So, I mean, it depends on if you want students to be learning it on their own outside of class, or if you want them being.
Well, what I'm envisioning is, if it ultimately becomes part of a university mecca, it would be internally registered, that it would be with the coordinator, but it would be an automatic thing, right? They go through the course, they give the quizzes, and then the coordinator gets credit for it without necessarily upfront teaching a lot, or maybe not at all. I don't know.
Well, one of
they
the
would be
things,
responsible. So I'm thinking it would be a biology, I don't know, 201 or something, and then it has, you guys are coordinator, and then there are 20 students enrolled, and you say, if you go through the damn thing, I'll be helping you with it. You have some office hours, but module by module, it would be remotely. It would be sort of unusual. We're doing that now. One of the things at LSU is to do remote broadcasting of coursework, to raise it to, I don't know, 15,000 down at, I don't know, 3,000 right now. How do we deliver content and have people registered? So they would already have to be registered. These are all students, so it will be no issue because they can register to a course here. And then faculty get credit because of their course. But the content could be incorporated as, part of it or the whole of that course, so it takes the pressure out of you be coming out every day, coming up with your own material to deliver, if you can incorporate. Now, for the LBRN campuses, kind of different need because guys don't have the infrastructure, may not have the faculty, but some generic faculty that could be used, so they could actually go through that. In fact, I'm thinking that we make some agreement with Pine Biotech and provide, up to 50, grad students and students to enroll per year, and we come and we get some of our people to contribute to this at a lower price or some kind. That's what I'm thinking right now aloud. But the broader question is, can we use this? Can we move it forward in some other way? Is it something that we could do, and also help the startup in some sense?
I think that regarding the Hawaii, the Delta, one of the bottleneck between the researcher, the student, and between us is actually through the Delta we can create workflow, whatever it is. But the problem is they have to describe what workflow, what software.
What does it do? How does it do it? Yeah.
So if they understand this kind of workflow, then easily we can develop the customized user workflow for the Delta. Because this one, if we have, for example, 30 gigabytes of data, then its uploading times will take a long time. Maybe sometimes this is going to be messed up. But Delta is really working on the real researches. But we can get better than research information from here, teach the student, and then we can those kind of.
So it could be part of whatever else we do. One of the things I'm thinking of doing is maybe get a Cameron's project, the Mississippi Delta microbiome, and make it a statewide project where basically, I don't know, from high school students to undergrads could be incorporated in a massive way, make it a statewide project, and go to the commissioner and say, how do we do this? How do we fund this? And, I haven't talked to you specifically about this, but I'm pretty sure the spot.
Sounds exciting.
I think we talked about this a little bit, in so many ways, because he's already collaborating, I think, with Chris Taylor, right, on this project with the LBRN core. And we want to get this project at minimum to the LBRN core. But ultimately, how do you move, computational biology in the state of Louisiana? Because I'm thinking even outreach. So I'm talking NIH CPA awards to get high school teachers and high school students be involved in things like that.
Seems like I'm sorry. I would say it seems to me like the level that would be appropriate for something like this would be kind of at a 4,800 kind of level where you had maybe some advanced undergraduates or beginning graduate students. Not that they couldn't grasp this, but like for first year students.
They have to have some introductory biology. They have to have probably a couple of years of biology, probably.
And I think they need some motivation for the questions that could be addressed with this kind of thing. And I think that, that sort of like beginning grad student level is where students have their own questions.
In other states, we had Thomas Kelly from here, from New Hampshire, and he basically had with Maine and now in Delaware, they had a project, a microbiome type of project, where basically all the students get together and find their bacteria, and they annotate their own bacteria, find things. So, different states are doing similar things. In fact, we'll probably coordinate with it at some point. The question is, how do you do a case study, right? Mm-hmm. Where here it is, you got your sample, it's your sample, you sequenced it. Now, what do you do with it? Can you use the tool to find out what is it and how does it relate to anything else? And that's how people will learn. Very interactive.
Sort of like the cure sections that you've had in some.
Well, no, that's not sequencing.
Not sequencing, but it could be if they're.
Yeah, it's definitely possible to teach those kinds of skills to undergrads. It's whether or not they understand what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Right. To the degree that this is actually really beautifully deployed, it's almost too easy to use. You just push the buttons and then boom, out comes the output, and the students don't necessarily understand the significance of why anyone's even bothering to set up the experimental design this way, or If I tell you you've got an actinobacteria AC1 clade, what does that mean? That's the
Yeah,
most,
so
you
it's
found that's the most
biology-
dominant
biology
organism
knowledge
in
and
your
stuff.
sample, but what does that mean?
So it's probably 4,000 level type of, you know.
I think Jeremy's got a good point there where it's maybe not about the technical capability of utilizing the tools, it's more about the background knowledge and the contextualization of the results that's really critical.
So do you think those modules that have this introductory and transcriptomics and
I mean, I haven't seen them, but I imagine if you
Yeah.
develop a lecture plan around that, then you could definitely bring people to that level, but
And
you need to
can we-
have some background.
can we
knowledge.
help in actually moving that content, you know, into, you know, this platform? Like some of the courses that we teach right now, could that course could be moved into a platform like this?
Yes, okay.
Okay.
I have a question before I go. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Ron. You know,
I gotta get on.
And also the biostatistics would be another possibility that we could probably put up on this.
I'm wondering, somewhere in here, there seems to be, most of the work I do is with the Health Sciences Center. And I know you've talked to the Health Sciences Center, Tulane and LSU, probably down in New Orleans, right? This would seem, we're involved with projects, basically, and increasingly, those projects are moving towards, you know, essentially integrating clinical data, genomics, proteomics, whatever. So, and these, most of the people that we're working with, or I'm working with, are clinical researchers that are bridging that gap. And so to some extent, they come with projects, to some extent, they come with anticipated needs, and some project could be created that takes them in the direction they want to go, if that makes sense. I think there's some opportunity there for over courses, a lot of details there. There probably is just as big an opportunity for not necessarily formal courses that you get credit for. I mean, half these people are MDs, they couldn't care less about the credit for it, you know?
Yeah.
And some of them do. Some of them are trying to add on degrees, and that's a, you know, there's a master's in clinical research or something like that at Tulane, and maybe something that works like that at LSU, the School of Public Health. But I can see where this kind of stuff could fit in there, really. I may be missing something, but as you say, you know, if you don't understand the context, what does this mean? These people understand the context. It's sort of like, what's the quickest way I can get there?
Jumpstart,
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting from, at least it strikes me as having a lot of potential from that point. Sorry, I've got to leave.
Well, so, I mean, part of the idea is to do that because it's a startup, you know, to do it in a collaborative way, and we'll talk about the details. The question is that platform? I can see it playing into the LBRN because we have certain goals in there fairly quickly, so I can jumpstart what we're doing with Delta and go to the next point. But the bigger thing is how to entice, you know, LSU and other faculty of ours to be part of this and move some of the content into this if we want to achieve beyond what we're trying to do internally. And the other question is for us internally at LSU is, would something like this fit into creating more interest in the field? I don't know.
Had you envisioned your system as being part of like semester-long types of classes, or more like sort of standalone, as needed, people would go to the site and, you know, go through it?
So, you know, we started doing this with individual students that did it at their own time, you know, and, you know, that wasn't very effective because you really need to be guided by somebody, you know. And so then we moved to kind of working with a professor that could put together a small group of students that at least he knows what their skill level is and what their background is. And it's more or less the same. And we saw that the improvement in skills is much bigger than just random people. And so then we thought, okay, well, you know, and this is all online. Then we thought, okay, I think it's going to work even better if it had some form of interactive, physically kind of let's get together and talk about some of the questions, maybe do a workshop in the beginning, a workshop at the end, and then in between give them access to the online materials and kind of do it at their own pace. So we want to start that. In fact, we're starting that at Loyola and UNO in January. So we'll see how it works, but we think it's going to work better.
And that's a similar mechanism that we will exploit for the BRN and potentially here, you know, under contract with the company to do certain things.
So one concern I have about this is what happens when the students are done with these courses, how they translate those skills into using them on their own in a different laboratory without having to pay for the access fee to your servers and things like that. So, I mean, granted the machine, you get the commands and the specific, modifying elements for those commands that are out there. But, from the perspective of what happens next for long-term viability, students are still going to have to know how to translate this to another computer system.
Is it possible to, once we run something through the workflow, is it possible we can fetch up, the command line?
Yeah. So you can export the whole pipeline as just code.
Yeah.
And I guess the only missing part would be somebody explaining, here's the transition, this is what you did. Because, yeah, like you said, this is to teach the logic.
Yeah.
And the visual reinforces that logic.
Yeah.
But then once they're done, if they had any minimum kind of coding skills that they could read the code that they just did and they can look at the picture and see, oh, okay, that's what I did. Yeah, and so I think it's just a matter of developing that extra module and, delivering it to students and seeing whether somebody can actually reproduce that on their own.
Yeah.
Which is something we're interested in doing.
Yeah.
And so you're using all open source programs, right? So if they leave and go to a different university, they'll have access to that.
Yeah.
So if they go through the genomics platform and the transcriptomics platform, they'll know the difference between using Bowtie and Top Hat.
Right.
So then they can just download them later.
Yeah.
And the tools you've developed are open source as well, or will be?
Well, so most of the tools that we develop are kind of on the machine learning side, and so they're not kind of like your bioinformatics processing jobs. A lot of the ones that we are developed are for integration, right? So they're not necessarily for the simple projects. And, whether they will be available open source or not, I mean, probably we don't think that there's going to be, they're for very specific use cases, right? So I think that's more on the research side.
Gotcha. So do you have a workflow for the semester where you start out with genomics?
Well, so we're starting to develop a specialization track, and I think that's going to be kind of like a semester thing. So for example, oncology will have introduction to bioinformatics, genomics 1, 2, 3, transcriptomics 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And ideally would also have epigenetics, but we just haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
But we think that, and now I think it's going to be up to the person who's delivering such a curriculum to evaluate how much time, do they have time for one project or two projects? Because originally we thought, if you're doing oncology, you probably should start from cell lines, you should do animal models, and you should do probably, human data like TCGA or something like that. So it would be nice to give them progression of complexity on the algorithmic side, on the data side, and on, system side, so to say, the biological system. But I don't know, that sounds like it's turning into like a year-long course and not a semester-long course.
Maybe like for one, let's say for RNA sequencing, 2 months, and then you show them the pipeline. And then you start with RNA sequencing, and then before going into the next step of the pipeline, before they can are able to select, you inform them, you give them a material, and then the quizzes and everything. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, they know which one to select. Mm-hmm. And then before going to the next one, you give them a material, the quizzes, and then when they finish with that module, then you come back and select, for example, chip on chip. And then they will have to do it again. At that time, it's going to be faster because now they know most of the information.
Yeah.
But sounds like there would be a combination of face-to-face with online teaching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it could be, I think it could, for example, if you have people that are users of bioinformatics tools and not developers, they can probably teach about using those tools as well, right? So they need a little bit of immersion into this and trying their own project. So I think if at the end of the process, not only do the students benefit, but also faculty are able to teach bioinformatics and feel more comfortable because they've tried using it in different projects, and, you know, they kind of see how it operates, that would be another benefit.
So do you have any of syllabus for any of those courses? You know, you could show us what actually the modules are.
Yeah, so I mean, I showed it here a little bit, but so transcriptomics 1, for example. So transcriptomics 1 focuses on getting from raw data to gene expression. So it talks about biology of transcription. Here's, by the way, what it kind of looks like inside. You know, it just talks about how is the data generated, and what are these reads, and what are we sequencing. And then it goes, you know, RNA-seq and other types of detecting abundance of RNA. Then it talks about how to generate the expression data using RNA-seq.
And you have also video clips, looks like, in there, right?
Yeah, there are video clips that, you know, in the middle have questions for them. You know, then we go behind the logic of RNA-seq analysis, what happens to the data. And, you know, you can kind of read, okay, what is top hat, what is cufflinks, what is RSM, what is bow tie, things like that. And I think that's pretty much it. You get to actually doing that pipeline in this first transcriptomics lesson. Then the second one teaches about t-test statistics. So differential expression using t-test, how to set up a differential expression pipeline. It talks about factor regression analysis for, you know, when you have variation within groups. You know, and then it talks also about other types of RNA, that is non-coding RNA. What do we do with that? And then transcriptomics 3. Well, transcriptomics 3, yeah, it's not here on the website yet, but basically what it goes through is how do you do batch effect correction, how do you do normalization, and then how do you use different things like clustering, you know, classification methods, and extract, you know, how do you answer specific questions that you have using these methods. So it's kind of like the machine learning for RNA-seq data. All 3 of these have this PDX project as an example, which is is pretty much a publication, and a lot of the quizzes are, can you read the abstract of the paper and understand what it means? You know, can you look at this publication, you know, graph and explain what does it show and things like that. And so what we are trying to do is before and after, before people take the course and after they take the course, that's how we can measure the skill improvement. You know, if they're able to start understanding typical publications that include, you know, charts and method description and findings, can they actually understand what's going on?
What about troubleshooting? Not debugging, but say an experiment that doesn't quite fit the normal pipeline, or you get an output that's completely not what you expected. So like how to just kind of go, what do you do then?
So we don't necessarily do this here, but we do have, there are batch effects in this project. And so we go through, you know, one of the solutions is, you know, just eliminate the ones that don't look good, or sometimes you do want to keep them in. And so there are some methods to kind of correct for batch effects. There's also another project that we look at that has, for example, missing data in some samples, so what are some methods to approximate for missing data values? So we go through some examples like that. It's probably not extensive, but. Yeah.
Well, on the back end, I guess the instructor could actually look what people are doing and be able to help.
Yeah, in the back end, it's actually, when we did the first beta testing, we would tell people you need to take the course. And the course, it says you specifically need to complete the pipeline to, complete the course. And so a lot of people would say, oh, I completed the course without completing the pipeline. But, because we can see everything that they're doing and when they first logged in and, when they logged out and whether they uploaded data and didn't upload data, we were able to early on tell them, that this isn't working, guys. You need to go back and rework this. And I think for students, a lot of times, like it was mentioned, they just kind of like, okay, well, I was asked to, click a few buttons, I clicked a few buttons, nothing worked, but who cares? I clicked the buttons, right? And so, for them to actually get something and that something is the right thing that they were supposed to get, if you need, as an instructor, you need to be able to have a way to check and maybe compare to other students, right? Because that would also help you, identify those expert users that you want to teach the coding skills and promote them to, more advanced projects.
How many servers do you have?
We have 3 servers, a 2 terabyte, a 4 terabyte, and a 6 terabyte.
Okay. So, are you planning on expanding that?
Yeah.
Because if you have 16, 17 students running projects at the same time.
Well, we have 5,000 students right now.
How many people can you handle code, like running jobs in parallel though?
So we actually give them small data sets.
Yeah.
And so, it's quite a lot of students can do it at the same time, maybe like 50 to 100.
Okay.
So if we had a classroom of 17 students trying to do it at the same time, would it get shut down?
Well, no, actually, so there's a queue, system there that it would just take a little bit longer if it's all of a sudden too many people, but it wouldn't crash it.
Okay.
And running the pipelines does actually take time. It's not just automatically.
Sure. Yeah. No.
John, what do you think? Looks good. Okay, we need to, I think I'm almost convinced we're going to launch it on the LBRN, at least on a limited basis. And then we'll work with you on something relating to that. The bigger question is whether something more elaborate can happen. I'm not sure, but we'll just have to kind of see. And we'll discuss further, I guess, early next year, what we're going to do. So the agreement with UNO is what are you guys doing with that? Is it actually across the board for a number of students? How many students are enrolled or whatever? What's your anticipated capacity?
Sorry. Loyola and UNO both are coming up with kind of faculty and student workshop first.
Yeah.
Then we're doing kind of like a study with, the students doing all the steps and us evaluating skill improvement. It's 10 to 15 students per each. I think both of them. So at UNO, it's more students because they were able to work both from the bioinformatics department and the biology
They have a
department.
strong emphasis for doing stuff.
Yeah, at Loyola, it's only 9 students right now are signed up.
Yeah. So you guys see anything like that in your courses that you're doing something like that? It could be part of your course or something, or working with a client to bring your course into your class to find. I don't know.
The point of my course is to teach people how to operate Linux command line
So
interfaces. So this negates
much
the
earlier.
entire point of my course. So I wouldn't use this in my course, but I could see if we were going to develop additional courses that were more specialized.
How about like a workshop? We could do the similar thing that Loyola,
It would definitely work great for teaching professors that have students that are trying to attack a certain project.
So we could
Get
take
them
like a
up to
small
speed.
group of, 10, 15, faculty, students group
Yeah,
to explore it
I think that'd be a good.
as a
start.
workshop type of thing.
I think see who'd be interested in something like that.
Cool.
Yeah. I think it would be, because, there's many professors who are like, oh, I want my student to do microbiome analysis, but they don't have the first clue about.
Yeah, so you could
What's
invite
involved.
faculty and say, we've got this small group, we're doing this thing, and then it could be somehow under your directions or something oversight. And a more interested group, a more focused group of 10, 15
Yeah.
faculty and grad students maybe. They
Mhm.
could actually
Yeah.
look into that and see.
We have to see how developed the pipeline is and how ready it is for that, but.
Yeah.
If there was a course that would maybe best fit with this, it would be Mahashi Dasnayaka's course on, is it called comparative genomics, or I can't remember exactly what it's called, but
I
it's
thought it was mostly transcriptomics.
Yes.
or mostly transcriptomics, yeah, but it's more along the lines of these sorts of pipelines.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're gonna do. I'm thinking we're gonna explore it for LPRN, potentially explore it within LSU. Just go slowly into this similar thing that Loyola and UNO is doing, and see how I could do it. I like the fact that it would be web's kind of solution type of thing, where everything, one-stop shop, you get a lot of materials there, and you'd be able to, get expert faculty on the back end to kind of guide you through it and say, well, I'm going to be looking at what you guys doing. 3 or 4 students doing it, right? And I'll go ahead and do it, but the back end, I'm going to know exactly what you're doing. So when you go and doing it wrong, I'll say, hey, did you consider this? That type of thing. So it would be like a tool,
Yeah. So one thing to consider is whether or not any of us can get teaching credit for this.
Well,
Because if
but-
we're trying to pop this on top of our existing.
Well, what I'm
teaching
saying is that it has to be through a course. It would be 1 credit, special topics course, because we have special topics.
Yeah.
And you can invite people to that course, we're based on, prerequisites or interest. And you can have the attending faculty being sort of attending, kind of co-learning with this, but the students themselves would have to register.
Yeah.
And it could be a module, right? It doesn't have to be a full semester course. It could be some kind of a workshop. It could be, I don't know, a month long or a 3-week or whatever you think could fit in. But the idea is that's what we want to do. We're going to give faculty credit for what we do. And that's what we're doing for the DUIs.
Yeah.
I said, we're not going to charge you for this. We're going to deliver it to you, but you can't teach a whole course on your own. You don't know capable of doing it, but you may be able to coordinate. And you have others helping you to do it, and you get full credit for teaching that course in your campus.
Okay.
Which actually does 2 things: reduces the teaching load, while they get equal credit or more.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win thing, and that's what the network is trying to facilitate. So, Mike, what do you think? Good luck starting the vet
Well,
school?
there's the traditional class format, but then also I see a need for people that submit samples to Gene Lab.
Yeah.
Where you can tell them, you're going to have RNA from Vladimir here in 2 weeks, so go take this transcriptomics.
So you understand what
course
I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, so then they can actually
Yeah, I mean, we're also going to have a
know what
service
the
core.
process would be to analyze that
Yeah.
data.
One of the ideas within CCT would like to build a service corps, that maybe John Koski, not young, but it was 2 or 3 research associates, bachelor's, master's degrees people will come in to actually help faculty do certain things and VRN people. That's a different type of thing. The more interesting thing is the more people you teach, younger people, to kind of learn, you actually avoid this issue of having to go to an expert without teaching anybody how to do it. And of course, these guys are also limited trying to get their own grants and papers out and so on. They can't teach 20 courses, from freshman to the graduate level. So the question is, how do we leverage these things and make it a little easier, more broadly, appealing, and actually delivering impact? Because I mean, if you have a couple modules that Jeremy or maybe you could put some of your evolutionary, biology stuff in there as in a similar setting, because I notice he has video clips for the professor or the person who guides them through. He has quizzes, he has other things, so it could be embedded into your course and make your life much easier. Instead of actually going out there, you say, this is it. Okay, I'm going to attending this. I'm going to deliver it. And I'm going to have instead of meeting every 3 times a week, we're going to meet once every 2 weeks to discuss where you guys are at. And remotely, I will be monitoring from home. Take care of my baby while I'm actually looking at it. Anyway, that sounds pretty good. Thanks, guys. I have to split to go to another meeting pretty soon. But any other questions you have? answer this. And I don't know, is there any way we could get some access to this for select faculty to sort of start looking into this on a, yeah. Because, I'm thinking, 3 or 4 or 5 people at BRN and LSU faculty that like to sort of get a deeper understanding of what's there and how it works. I'm convinced we're gonna try to launch something, hopefully in January or sometime thereafter for the BRN as a sort of complementary to what we're doing.
Yeah.
But, developing some of these more workshops, other things, hopefully by the end of the spring term, we may come into agreement to actually launch something bigger.
Great.
Okay? All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I guess if anybody else is listening in, we'll get,
Server instead of EDU.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
server?
We'll probably, John Hussey, Chris Taylor, maybe Jeremy, Karen, Foster,
And
maybe Brent Turtle. 5 or 6 people take a look, access to it. Over the holidays, you get in there, kind of learn a little
But
more
we
about
need
it.
an account.
Whatever.
You email all.
I'm surprised.
Rob should also, we can get you access to play around with all you want.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
if you really
Okay.
discharge.
Change that, I said that. Everybody.
You let me know.
Yeah, at 9.5.
That's just.
We've had people try.
Well, it makes our BRN life a little easier because we have a hard time, taking those lectures and probably following up, right? So if we get content and put it in together, what Chris is doing.
You know who else might?
Okay.
Thank you. Try this, Gary King.
Gary,
Because he's teaching like a
Yeah.
2000 level micro.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary.
Is he really?
And,
2000?
I think so.
and there's also some people in the accent.
And it's like it's basically, he's trying to come up with plug and play solutions for them because what he's trying to teach them about is ecology,
Yeah,
not
really.
data analysis.
Yeah.
As opposed to some of the, as opposed to learning.
Yeah, if you see Gary, talk a little bit about what you said.
Thank
so
you.
here. There are a couple other people that come out of nowhere doing actually.
I had a
big
big
test of the accent center and someone else engineering. Doing microbiome stuff. A lot of people doing it, but I don't normally see it. But,
Nice.
They come up to me and says, I'm doing this. I say, wow. Geez, where were you about?
So that would be another person.
Yeah, okay.
At least see if it might work.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Nice to see you. Yeah, take care.
Good seeing you.
Okay,
Yeah.
See
you.
You guys heard.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
April 6th and 7th.
Good job. So we'll see. We'll do something and, we'll try to do something with the BRN for the quickly. So I think we might get, 6, 7 of this faculty.
All right. Yeah, because you're not.
That's consent. We'll give us class up there, once in front of each class. I would actually, what I would do, I mean, we could launch it for those faculty on the BRN network and their students, probably as early as May 1st. And then bring in at least, I don't know, 20, 30 people to begin with, and try to see how it goes, then we work and expand it beyond that. And then I could actually put it into next year budget to start spending those. And, it'll be 10, let's say 50, 100 will be, what, 7,500. It's not a big deal for us, we can pay that, I just want to, but before that, we need to get access to 6, 7 people, to kind of look at it a little
Well,
bit.
that was my next question. Is who do we need to talk to about getting, should we switch for email from you?
Yeah, from Ramesh, we'll create your listing and give it to them, and then, and we may launch a little earlier, depending because we have funds right now, probably, in January, but nothing will happen at the shoot before, after the holidays, and everything's slow down, it's switching over right now. So, but, then in January, we do have the annual conference up in Shreveport. Maybe you guys are welcome to come